This story is brought to you by my generous Patreon supporters. Cade steadied his horse with a squeeze of both knees, keeping her dancing legs in check and protecting the dusty mounds below from wayward hooves. The 4 lines of raised dirt sheltered the still warm bodies of his dead friends. The new mount had a sure spirit, along with an insatiable lust for speed. But she would have to wait a few moments longer before indulging in the open road. Black spots peppering her stark. White hide made the beast the most beautiful he had ever owned, but also the least likely to go unnoticed. She would have to be sold as soon as possible. For now, the piebald, richly rewarded to him by the frontier town for his valor and sacrifice, would carry him as far from its gates as possible. The miles she would gift him, he hoped, would provide a buffer against the overwhelming shame that was eating away at his conscience. He intended to quickly put distance between himself and his loss after one last goodbye and a final apology. Unable to curb the enthusiasm of his new filly any longer, Cade checked his saddlebags were secure, took a swig from his old rawhide canteen and silently tipped the rim of his hat to his men for the last time. Reining her around to face the open prairie, it took only the slightest touch of his spurs to send the coiled spring that was his steed bolting into the unknown, billowing up a cloud of dust that fell away in the wind of her speed. Neither of them looked back. By the time he pulled her into a more controlled gait, there was nothing on the horizon but dry grasses, scattered boulders, and the simmering of the noonday heat. The horse was glistening all over under a sheen of sweat, a product of the harsh sun and their mutual need to shed Talem's Bend. For the horse it seemed a desperation to venture out into the world, beyond the only stable she had ever known. For Cade, it was simply a desire to shed all reminders of his guilt. He slowed her further into a walk. He would need to teach the animal some control. A stricter hand would be required to offset the initial freedom he had afforded her, confusing for the animal, but necessary under the circumstances. Venture. Perhaps that would be a fitting name for you, he muttered, so that only the two of them could hear. Pointless, given their seclusion in the open, flat country. He could see at a glance how alone they truly were. It was idyllic when compared to the stifling attention he had endured from the grateful townsfolk. Glimpsing the shine of a small water body ahead, Cade adjusted their course and made a beeline for the trickle of a stream that meandered over the rocks. It was a long journey to anywhere but here, and they would need water above all else to survive the trip. I suppose you care little for who rides you. Only that they do it well, Cade mused, his face shedding droplets onto his loose shirt. Bandit, sheriff, or dunce. I imagine it means little, as long as you get to run. Venture raised her head from where she had been lapping greedily downstream and snorted, almost in response. In case it should interest you, you carry a coward. A no-good yellow-bellied loser who is like to get you killed. But do not fret, darling. I'll see you taken on by someone more deserving of your spirit. Next town over is a trading post. I'll do right by you. Get myself a dun beast in body and mind. A more fitting match. Cade rifled through the heavy saddlebags, pulling out some jerky and a loaf of bread. He offered up a palmful of oats to the horse before perching on a rock and filling his own belly. Even the meal of simple rations was tinged with regret. He had not deserved the hospitality, but could not have turned down the gifts. Not without being forced to either leave on foot or remain at the stifling settlement indefinitely. He had judged it better to accept what was not due him than remain where he was and perpetuate the facade. There weren't supposed to be so many, he began his confession. We wouldn't have taken the job on otherwise. Heroism is only worthwhile if you are sure of survival. Damn bandit gang had been harassing Talem's Bend for nigh on a year. They must have frightened you plenty, Hagel? Well, they won't be bothering them folks any longer. My boys' lives bought them some peace. He shook his head and threw the burnt crust of his loaf into the stream, where even the water couldn't soften its bake. Standing, he pulled out a brush and began working down his temporary companion. He didn't want to lose any coin due to a messy coat. When I saw just how outnumbered we were, I knew we were lost. Couldn't control my fear. Turns out, I'm a coward. Like I said, always engineered it before, like as we would win without issue. This time, I got it wrong. Hid myself amongst some barrels aside the tavern, listened to the war raging all around. The lads, they did me proud, fought to the last.